Hi, Rick Harsh here. Brought to you by Savor Guitars of Isola, Slovenia, makers of fine guitars, various other stringed instruments, and tools with which to work with guitars and various other stringed instruments. And probably, I've seen some of the tools and I've thought, man, those would really help with my feet in more ways than one. So Savor Guitars brought me to you, and if you have any complaints, look them up on the internet and say, can you stop bringing us this guy? It won't work because, he doesn't really, the head of Savor Guitars is named Saber. I call him Dr. Saber. And he doesn't really have any control over anything I do, nor does he give me any money, so he can't cut off any money. But I thought to myself, I think to myself a lot, but one of the things I thought to myself about recently, and I think to myself a lot about generally, is crowdfunding. It came up not long ago when a friend of mine bought a book that had been published via crowdfunding, and he said it was a pretty bad book. It had a big name author, and but it was comprised of, as he later found out, stories that had been rejected again and again and again, which to those of you who write and get rejected again and again doesn't mean a goddamn thing. But in this case, it did, because this guy could have published anything he wanted, including those stories, if he'd have just, asked for a little less money, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, point was, I said, okay, so the public pays for the book to be published. They buy the book, and it's crap. What does that tell you about crowdfunding? Not a lot. One of my favorite books by myself, largely because of the cover, but also because the story is a good one. This is the cover. Voices After Evelyn was crowdfunded by Maintenance Ends Press of Iowa, a subset, mathematically speaking, of Ice Cube Press, a fairly long-running small press. It was supposed to launch Maintenance Ends Press, but it didn't do very well in the market. Unfortunately, they needed to rely on Amazon for a lot of help in terms of distribution and so on. And in the end, if anybody bought this from Amazon for 20 bucks, the press got either $1 or $2. I can't remember which one it was, but Amazon took the lion's share and the hyena's share. That's how that works. And okay, well, I'm having trouble getting it back in its slot. So I can't. I'd be a hypocrite if I attacked crowdfunding. And I'm also a big fan of news on YouTube. That's where I get all my news. I know which channels I like. I mean, to name one in the United States, Democracy Now! Is terrific. To name one in England, Novara Media is brilliant. And to name one in the world, I don't know where they're actually located, Electric Intifada is excellent, as well as Gray Zone. They're both very good in matters Middle Eastern and elsewhere. So they're all crowdfunded, and I remember when I was a younger fella, the big crowdfunded channel in the United States was PBS, and we all appreciated programs on PBS. Terry Gross, interviewing authors and so on. Maybe it wasn't just authors, I don't know, but I remember Terry Gross was really good. But then there would be the period each year when they would just bombard us with, crowdfunding pleas. And that's sort of changed today. Now, on Democracy Now!, I think maybe twice a year, maybe 4 times a year, Amy Goodman very pleasantly ends her first half hour with Democracy Now! Is brought to you by listeners like you. And then she suggests that, if you can afford to give us some money, go ahead. And that's basically as much browbeating as you get. It gets a little irritating for listeners when we hear hit like and subscribe. Hit like and subscribe. Because it's tedious. It's the same thing again and again, the same exact words. Hit like and subscribe. It goes a long way towards whatever. And then if you want, you can, that some will go on and talk about their Patreon and, all of that. And then it gets into a pretty difficult area for me to accept. You've got this new model where anybody's free to go on to where I'm going right now, YouTube. And you can watch this free, and why anybody would pay for this, I don't know. But then again, some people who do really great journalistic work are probably worth paying for if you've got the money. And who does? I don't know. So they go to Patreon, and if you want more, you have to get it from Patreon. And the best way to solve that as a relatively poor user of the I don't know what you call it, the media outlet of YouTube. I just don't want more. I usually tune in on a given day to find out what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in the rubble of Gaza and Palestine, and so on. A lot of good things have been happening. I saw that Colombia is setting up an embassy in Ramallah in the West Bank. That'll be interesting. I don't know what the logistics will be, but of course Israel will try to stop that from happening. Israel is very upset. They've pulled their ministers from Ireland, Norway, and Spain because Iowa, Norway, and Spain have announced that they're going to recognize the state of Palestine. There was one interview yesterday, I think Isaac Herzog was on and was asked his response to that. Well, not very helpful. It's not very helpful. I can imagine. I mean, what if everybody in the entire debate recognized not only the Nakba, that's easy to recognize, and it's also easier for the Israelis to bullshit about. But what's not so easy is the occupation since the '67 war. That's plainly illegal and against international law, and the U.S. has been allowing that to happen since 1967, and that's fundamentally the problem we're left with today. I think the Nakba is, you know, there is a very emotional pull to the right of return. But I believe that if Palestinians were offered a state on fair terms and with guarantees of no more Israeli shenanigans, they and enough land, you know, go back to the '67 pre-war borders. I think they would be fine. And I'm even pretty sure that the Hamas charter says, you know, they no longer call for the extermination of the Israeli state. If I'm wrong about that, I'm not too wrong, because I'm absolutely sure that if they were given the right to a state, they would say, all right, well, here, we'll change our charter. And, you know, and of course no state would be agreed to without international guarantees of the border, meaning the U.S. would be involved in guaranteeing militarily the right of an Israel of some size to exist. So there's really no problem there. But I think I've gotten astray from my topic. I was led to this topic because I have, do I have any out here? No. No. I have two books that are written by Colombians, and we wanted to get them translated. And, you know, I thought maybe someday that through a crowdfunding or something like that, maybe. But I'm really so much against crowdfunding as a person. You know, I don't want to be involved in it. I won't condemn people who crowdfund, but I don't want to be a part of it. There's something just fundamentally uncomfortable about it for me. I would love donations by well-off people that come out of the blue. So if you're a well-off people who want to give me money for coronasams.books out of the blue, well, don't hesitate. Send me an email. I'll ask my my accountant what the proper way of accepting your money is. But I'm not going to ask, and I'm not going to make anything contingent on crowdfunding. Our publishing is contingent on sales. Sales have been in the toilet since the middle of June, or January, sorry. My head's been in the toilet since the middle of June 1994, I think was the year. Anyway, was at the workshop, you know, of course. And I think that the thing that we do with the crowdfunding is, anti-crowdfunding, non-crowdfunding, is we simply sell books, take the money from the books we sell, and use that. I admit that when I started this 4 years ago, I thought, well, maybe in a few years we'll be doing well enough that I can make rent money in my retirement. I just hit retirement age last week, and I need to do all the paperwork to get my pension, which will be very low. As a writer, I was basically working in the black and often surviving on amounts like $2,000 a year or something like that. I don't really know. I can't keep track. When I drove taxi, I think that was on the black. The only company in town was run on the black, I believe. I may be wrong about that, so maybe I got some years in taxi driving. But I'm not going to get a very big pension. I worked really hard for 10 years here in the teaching game. I taught everywhere, and editing. I did a lot of editing. I still do a lot of editing here, but even a lot of that is on the black. Depends on who I'm working for. A lot of it isn't on the black, so I do get a tax return every year. It's a nice bonus. So what this is a long way of saying, if I don't have the money to print the book from sales, then I don't print the book. So I can't really fail. The organization can't fail unless I go nuts. I'm getting a bonus from a job I did. I got 400 for work that probably was worth 50 euros if I did it fairly. But the guy was giving a presentation, was very nervous. It was in the maritime business, and he was doing it in front of high up naval people, and he was really nervous about it. So he asked me to write in some jokes and to correct whatever was uncomfortable or wrong, and we went back and forth a few times. But the number of hours I put in, if it was more than an hour, would not have earned me more than 50 euros. And he gave me 400. And now I'm thinking I'm going to give 300 to the press, maybe 400. I'm not sure. There's another possibility for 100 euros. But I'll put that in to the press. I'm not. I thought by now I'd be making money, but I'm not. But I'm pretty emotionally tied to the writers. I'm suffering not for the people like Randall Leong and Roberto Ontiveros, who are our next two writers. As soon as their books are ready, they'll be printed. I have just enough money to cover them, and but the next thing I have to save for the books that are out of print, that have been sold out. They're not out of print; they're sold out, and they need to be replenished. That's Braden Matthews' Solarium, and Zach Tanner's Oscar Submerges, and Robert Stickley's A Bended Circuity. So if any of you are thinking anything about those books, I'm doing my best, but I have to sell enough to print them. And the Stickley book is pretty expensive because it's big, and the other two, I don't. The fewer I print, the more expensive they are. So there's I think it'd be sort of pointless to print 20, for instance. I could do it, but I'd be charged quite a bit. And so I have my minimum number that I'll print. It's about it's between 100 and 130. And so there you have it. Now, the Colombian writers, we've found, just by putting them into print in Spanish, we've sold fewer than 10 of each. I thought maybe Spain would come alive with a desire for Colombian writers from Corona Samizdat. That turned out not to be true. But we've gotten volunteers to translate the two books. They'll be coming out this year, if the catastrophe, resolves itself. But, I was thinking, about the money and the lack of sales. I'm thinking, I'm getting really good comments. I have from the beginning, and more so in the last year, I suppose, than before. Every day, somebody on Instagram says something nice, and it's really the cliche word is rewarding. To a degree, it is. It makes me happy when somebody says something about, like, for instance, David Miller's book. This one here, Philosophy of Creativity. Somebody just got it and wrote today, and he wanted to know if there are any other works by David Miller. He said, I think he expressed surprise at how good it was, and that really makes me happy. I think I've got enough. I've had enough praise for my own writing that I don't need more, but it always feels good. But it really feels good when it comes out of the blue and it's someone, like David Miller or David Vardaman, anyone named David, or Filthy Synecdoche by Ben Lieberman. You can get a signed copy. That always makes me feel really good. But you know what? If nobody's buying books, rather than look at it as a completely, bad situation for me, I have to think maybe it's a really bad situation for other people. Maybe the people who are not buying the books are people who wanted to buy books, who could buy books, and I'm worried about the economy. Just because poor people need to survive, and we will never. A lot of things have been coming together lately. Let me just quickly summarize this. I was inspired by Chase Griffin and Christina Quay to go back and dig into Burroughs. So I got this biography in which I find out that he went through a American Indian, maybe Lakota Sioux ceremony, the what do they call it? The sweat lodge ceremony, and he wanted to get rid of this ugly, I don't know if he didn't, ugly spirit it was called, and that he believed was within him his whole life, and he was it was in his 80s when he did this. So a few years before he died, and he said that he had to face the whole of American capitalism, Rockefeller, the CIA, all of those, particularly Hearst. And he also said it's very much related to the American tycoon, to William Randolph Hearst, Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, that whole stratum of American acquisitive evil, monopolistic acquisitive evil. Ugly evil, the ugly American at his ugly worst. That's exactly what it is. It was also, he was an addict his whole life, or much of his life, and I think that was part of the curse as well. But and I think what he's talking about even there is addiction. What is it? The acquisitive evil. What is that if not a perverse addiction? The inability of people in the United States to recognize the horrors of inequality and grotesque disparities of income is something that's baked into them, and at the same time, where's the other book I was reading? I'm reading Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine, and I'm reading about Milton Friedman right now, and so that also fits in. That's sort of the blueprint for happy fascism, and it's basically was implemented. Friedman-esque nonsense was, deregulation, privatization was let loose by Reagan in the Reagan era, and there's much more to it. There was also the use of Chicago economics to destroy economies in Latin America, of course. But so that at the same time, I'm being interviewed, and I got the interview questions yesterday, and there's a lot about fascism in there. And after I'm done with this, I'm going to go answer those questions. And the thing is about fascism, I think one question is, what can we do to stomp out fascism? I think that's one of the questions. And I think there are two questions for me. One is, what can we do? And the answer is nothing. And the other is, what should we do given that there's nothing we can do? And that's, as much as possible, keep your children aware, and something like that is what's percolating right now. I don't know what'll happen when I get there. There being back where the typewriter is at the other end of this apartment. So, crowdfunding is the issue, but the real issue is money on a large scale, societal money, money that's unavailable to artists. And fuck the term creators and curators and all those terms. It's there's writers, there's painters, there's dancers, whatever anybody doing their own individual work wants to, like the woman who makes felt rabbits in town. She's an artist. But I don't know what she calls herself. If she calls herself a maker of felt rabbits, then that's what she is. Not a creator. She does create. Not that she doesn't create, but she's not a creator. And the people who decide what goes into a program are not curators. Arrangers is what they are. Arrangers for curators. My ass. Okay, that's it. Sorry to go on so long, but what would Saver think if I talked for 3 minutes here and there? Crowdfunding. I don't want it. But I don't care if it remains.